The government shutdown is coming to an end, but mass layoffs show no signs of stopping. If you thought October was bad enough, buckle up, because the crises are not over yet. And based on what's happening right now, they could return even stronger in December and potentially last throughout 2026. The most concerning thing isn't the number of people losing their jobs in the recently released reports, but rather its gradual increasing rate. One by one, businesses, from technology, retail, manufacturing, and services to finance, are simultaneously shifting into defensive mode, cutting staff before entering a year predicted to be full of volatility. And as the entire economy tightens simultaneously, no one is confident enough to say this is just a temporary correction. Many experts warn that the December layoffs could be just the opening shot for a new recessionary cycle. Because fundamental indicators, from consumer confidence, purchasing power, and corporate revenue to corporate cash flow, are all sending negative signals. The problem is that even the workers are exhausted after 2 years of living in fear of unemployment. This crisis seems to be just entering its most dangerous phase. In today's video, we'll delve into why this round of layoffs isn't the final straw, but could be just the beginning of a new crisis spiral, and more importantly, what signals are foreshadowing a darker 2026 than we can imagine. Christmas is just around the corner, but many Americans are still living in fear of a Halloween season that never ends. No longer the jack-o'-lanterns or the mischievous laughter of children. This year's fear comes from the pink slips, small pieces of paper that have the power to end a stable life, enough to usher in days of emptiness and uncertainty for thousands of American workers. As of September 2025, the United States had recorded over 946,000 layoffs, and just 1 month later, that number surpassed 1 million, making it the worst month in 22 years. It's no longer a slight decline signal, it's confirmation of a crisis period quietly forming within the labor market. And what's even scarier, this time, it's not sparing any industry. It's not just young startups or newly established tech companies. Even giants like Amazon, Verizon, airlines, and retail chains are simultaneously reshuffling the deck of their personnel. And AI is a name that appears repeatedly in every press release. Amazon is leading the way with a record-breaking cut of 14,000 office positions, about 4% of its global workforce, under the guise of restructuring management. Microsoft followed suit with 6,000 employees, the 3% being laid off. Some independent analyzers indicate that many of the positions being cut are middle management, as corporations aim to increase the ratio of engineers to managers by replacing the middle tier with AI systems that automatically assess and allocate work. If you've ever felt your boss was difficult, then perhaps you were still lucky, because at least you were working with a real flesh and blood person. Because, out there, thousands of white-collar workers are being monitored by AI managers, precise, absolute, emotionless, and utterly lacking in human touch. From a support tool, AI is gradually becoming your boss. A 58-year-old man who used to work in logistics in Ohio recounted that he was laid off just days after Thanksgiving. A gift I never expected to receive. That's the general feeling spreading across the country. A cold, unprepared surprise. Unable to brace for the most anticipated holiday season of the year. What's more concerning, industries that were once considered stable, healthcare, logistics, retail, manufacturing, are also cutting back across the board. Jobs that were once the safety net of the working class have suddenly become as fragile as a pane of glass. The cause is quite clear. During the period 2020-2022, many companies overhired, recruiting too many people to meet the sudden surge in demand. And 2025 became the time they had to cleanse, leading to a wave of layoffs in the second half of the year. At the same time, American businesses are caught in a triple bind: high interest rates, rising operating costs, and slightly declining consumer demand. In a bind, the only thing they can cut back on to maintain profits is people. And the consequences aren't just reflected in the financial statements. It crept into every home, every meal, every bill. Millions lost their jobs, the middle class struggled, families were stressed, and consumption decreased. An America that not only loses jobs, but also loses the sense of security that people once believed was immutable. Meanwhile, total household debt reached a record high of $18.5 trillion. People have to rely on credit cards more than ever. Of course, that doesn't mean everyone is about to default. Many people have fixed mortgages and assets. But it does expose a truth. They are living by mortgaging their own future, not their current income. If the economy declines, will they be able to pay on time? It's a difficult question to answer with certainty. December is usually a seasonal hiring month, but in 2025, instead of expanding, many companies are cutting contract and part-time staff. Americans at the household level say they feel the recession more clearly than inflation. Job losses, rising debt, falling incomes, while essential costs continue to climb week by week. Although the above data doesn't clearly indicate that the US will fall into a great recession like in 2008, it paints a more frightening picture. A silent job recession where the number of jobs lost is faster than the number of new jobs being created. And so, the winter of 2025-2026 is predicted to be the most difficult winter in nearly 2 decades, as job losses, debt, and high living costs simultaneously weigh down on millions of American families. The layoff figures reported in the press may shock many people, but they are only the tip of the iceberg silently drifting beneath the surface of America. Because deep beneath the glossy reports and fleeting news bulletins, a much colder phenomenon is taking place. Stealth layoffs. Unnamed, unannounced layoffs that don't appear in any official statistics. Across the states, hundreds of thousands of workers are having their hours or shifts reduced, or their contracts are not being renewed. They disappeared from the labor force as if they never existed. And because they weren't counted as unemployed, they also didn't receive support. This is a dark spot in the job market that current data still can't capture. Simultaneously, many businesses are maintaining another form, a silent hiring freeze. No hiring freeze was announced. No overstaffing was reported. They simply left open positions vacant, quietly not hiring anyone else. This makes the actual number of unemployed people much higher than what the public sees in the monthly indicators. In industries like logistics, retail, or warehousing, the 8-hour workday has been reduced to 4 hours. For many workers, income therefore decreased by 40 to 60%, but they were still not considered unemployed, only employed. A gentle term for a deep cut into the lives of millions of families. In the healthcare system, especially in rural hospitals, the scene is even more depressing. The clinic was closed, nurses' shifts were cut, but it was all called by a common name: internal restructuring. No layoffs, no warnings, no announcements, just the quiet shrinking of an already fragile network. The non-renewal of contract cuts are the same. The number is even larger than official layoffs, but because they are not considered dismissals, they go unreported as if they never happened. Similarly, many people are forced to leave the workforce because of a sudden increase in workload, cut benefits, or being assigned to exhausting shifts. They weren't fired, but they lost their jobs in the truest sense, an invisible but weighty loss. In some states, unemployment benefit applications have skyrocketed, while businesses in the region report no significant change. Two opposing layers of data create a frightening crack. Something is happening outside the statistical light cone. Some companies are even delaying the announcement of layoffs until early next year to avoid impacting their year-end financial reports. This means the current figures don't include the data backlogged for Q1 2026, like a silent wave waiting for the right moment to break onto the front pages. Some companies even choose to re-describe jobs, changing requirements to the point where employees are forced to quit because they can't meet them. a strategy for reducing staff without having to sign any termination letters. And when you put all those pieces together, from the increase in unemployment claims, the decrease in working hours, the number of layoffs, the hiring freeze, the non-renewal of contracts, the iceberg beneath the surface becomes clearer. It's much larger, deeper, and more severe than the officially reported figure of over 1 million layoffs. What we see is just the surface of a winter that is forming. And what was hidden was precisely what made that winter the coldest in many years. In the current job market, older workers, who carried the weight of America on their shoulders for decades, are becoming the most vulnerable group. It's not because they're weaker, but because the modern recruitment system is changing in a way they weren't prepared for. Automated recruitment algorithms, or ATS, can now reject a resume in just a few seconds. And those seemingly objective criteria unintentionally target people aged 40, 60 plus. The year of university graduation is too long ago. There are gaps between jobs, or even too much experience. All of these can be reasons for immediate rejection. Results: the older worker group was affected almost twice as much as the younger 20-35 age group. Behind flashy terms like cultural reset, reorg, or new workforce strategy, many companies are quietly letting go of long-term, high-salaried employees. This isn't a direct age-related layoff, but a softer spiral, a kind of strategy that traps older adults in what many experts call the reorg trap. According to the continuous restructuring cycle, the roles they play suddenly become unsuitable, are then eliminated, merged, or assigned to younger people at lower costs. At senior age, losing your job is not just about losing income. It's a complete loss of the financial security that was built up over 30-40 years. Many people in the 50-60 age group still carry medical debt, home debt, and car debt. Every month without a salary is a risky void, a void they no longer have time to fill. Worse, many people are pushed into situations called forced resignation, being pressured to sign voluntary resignation forms so the company can avoid legal liability related to age discrimination. Those applications may seem voluntary, but in reality, they are the result of pressure, difficult shift assignments, or new job requirements that exceed the capabilities of someone nearing retirement age. In the context of rising living costs, high interest rates, and businesses prioritizing Gen Z hires to save money, it's becoming harder than ever for the seniors age group to re-enter the workforce. They are caught between two walls, an increasingly youthful labor market and an increasingly expensive life. And when things pile up, debt, expenses, family pressure, declining health, losing a job at an older age is not just a career shock. It was the collapse of a long journey, where what they had spent their lives building suddenly became fragile in just one restructuring meeting. Throughout 2025, numerous companies in the US declared that they were entering the AI era, and as a result, a wave of employees were laid off. But when you look deeper into the data, a chilling truth emerges. AI is just a smokescreen, and the real reason lies in cold financial spreadsheets. Most layoffs labeled AI transformation are simply to legitimize the decision to reduce staff. AI is becoming a communication tool, not an operational tool. Many businesses use terms like optimize performance, automate processes, and digital transformation. But in reality, they are signaling to investors, we are saving costs and increasing profits. And every time layoffs are announced with the word AI, the stock price goes up because the market believes the company is boldly innovating. There are even positions described as having been replaced by AI. But upon actual inspection, there is no AI system performing that work at all. The role was eliminated simply because the company wanted to reduce payroll, not because AI was capable of replacing humans. Many industries, especially logistics, customer service, and administration, have not yet practically implemented AI. And yet, They still label layoffs as AI to reduce negative public reaction. In other words, businesses found that blaming AI was safer than blaming themselves. In many leaked internal reports, the real reasons lie in high interest rates, increased operating costs, declining revenue, and immense pressure from shareholders. But they couldn't announce that because it would cause the market to panic. So AI became the perfect media shield. The AI washing trend emerges. Businesses loudly announce technology upgrades to cover up restructuring. Some jobs were eliminated but were rehired a few months later as cheap contractors. Clear evidence that AI didn't replace them at all, but was just an excuse. Even in the tech industry, where AI is strongest, the actual percentage of jobs being replaced by automation is only a small fraction. The rest is mainly financial layoffs, not technological ones. And this is the scariest part. Once the excuse AI is replacing you becomes legitimate and socially acceptable, businesses can continue to lay off employees indefinitely without fear of backlash. If AI is an easy excuse to give, then operating costs are the real stranglehold that is suffocating American businesses. Throughout the 2 years of prolonged high interest rates, thousands of businesses, especially small businesses, found themselves unable to borrow funds to stay afloat. And when there was no way back, they were forced to cut staff before they themselves went bankrupt. Soaring commercial loan interest rates forced companies to cancel projects, reduce production, and scale down operations. Each such decision leads to tens of thousands of jobs disappearing silently. It's not because the workers are bad, but because the business can't afford the cost of borrowing money to continue operating. Rising tariffs are causing the prices of raw materials, equipment, and imported goods to increase every month. Key industries like manufacturing and logistics are facing double pressure. Input costs are rising, while the volume of goods in circulation is decreasing due to weak demand. Businesses are caught between two pincers: tariffs and shipping costs. In large states like California or New York, office, warehouse, and store rental prices have increased to the point where many businesses have had to close some branches or relocate to other states. Each time such a migration occurs, hundreds of employees lose their jobs. And in rural areas, the story is even more painful. Many local hospitals and factories, which had been stable sources of employment for decades, could not withstand the rising operating and insurance costs. When they closed, the entire community collapsed with them. Hundreds of families were left unemployed. Retail is even more difficult. They have to raise prices to cover the cost of goods and maintain their stores. But as people tightened their spending, revenue fell sharply. And so, the workforce was the first to be cut. Insurance costs, employee medical expenses, shipping costs, all simultaneously escalated to levels unseen in decades. Faced with shareholder pressure, many CEOs choose the easiest but most painful path: reducing staff to maintain profits rather than investing in people. American businesses are cutting staff not because they have run out of work to do, but because they can no longer afford the cost of keeping those people employed. If you ask what's driving layoffs across the US, many corporations will talk about AI, about restructuring, about efficiency. But when you look deeper into the numbers and what's happening in each round of cuts, you start to realize a hard truth. Quarterly profit pressure and corporate greed are the real drivers behind this wave of layoffs. Over the past year, a series of companies announced increased revenue and stable profits, even exceeding expectations. However, immediately after that, they laid off thousands of employees, citing cost optimization as the reason. On Wall Street, this is seen as a positive sign, but for workers on Main Street, it's a death sentence hanging over their heads. Layoffs have become a tool to beautify quarterly reports, to make stock charts rise faster, despite the social impact behind them. Meanwhile, CEO compensation at many large corporations continues to rise steadily, even sharply, in the very years they are laying off the most employees. Stock options, performance bonuses, management allowances, all increased in parallel, with thousands of families losing their livelihoods. This creates a heartbreaking paradox. The people who decide to lay off employees are the ones who directly benefit from those cuts. Not a few companies also choose sensitive times for layoffs, right before bonus periods, right before seniority is recorded, or right before employees are eligible for a pension. Each timely cut saves the company millions of dollars in benefit costs, but also cuts off the years of contribution from older workers. When long-term employees are eliminated, many positions are filled by younger, cheaper labor or hourly contractors. This is called payroll optimization, but for Americans aged 50, 60 plus, it's nothing more than a signal that they are being replaced by a cheaper generation, regardless of experience or loyalty. HR departments at many companies admit they receive directives to slim down the workforce, meaning they must cut based on KPIs assigned by management rather than on the actual needs of each department. This created across-the-board layoffs nationwide, cuts at all branches, regardless of whether the branch was losing or making a profit. What is the most obvious consequence? Long-term job stability, the foundation of the American middle class, is being sacrificed for quarterly profits. And the most heartbreaking thing is that the group most severely affected is precisely those who have spent their entire lives contributing to this system. American workers in the baby boomer generation. This is no longer an economic story. This is a crisis of confidence in business ethics, and in the promise that hard work will be rewarded, which generations of Americans have believed for decades. If you look at the history of the labor market, bad numbers at the end of the year usually don't stop there. When Q4 declines, Q1 and Q2 of the following year almost always continue the downward trend. 2026 may not be different. Many companies have postponed layoffs until early next year to avoid negatively impacting their 2025 financial reports, creating a double explosion that workers will have to endure from the very first months. The logistics, retail, technology, and manufacturing sectors have announced multiple Phase 1 cuts in 2025, signaling that Phase 2 could arrive in 2026. Meanwhile, although interest rates may fall, the pace is not fast enough to save small businesses, which account for the majority of the local labor market. Older workers, those aged 50, 60 plus, will face the greatest difficulties. Their job search takes longer, their skills are less up to date, and they have to compete with a younger workforce earning lower wages. Losing a job at this age is not just a loss of income, but also the loss of the financial safety net built up over decades. Many Americans are choosing the path of retraining through short-term certificates, which helps them adapt quickly to the market. At the same time, local communities, from churches and veterans organizations to technical groups, are becoming important pillars, providing both spiritual and financial support. Although the outlook for 2026 remains challenging, workers are not completely stuck. Hope lies in unity, sharing experiences, supporting job searches, and focusing on less automated industries where practical experience and skills are still valued. Because ultimately, even in the coldest economic winter, those who know how to lean on community, learn, and be flexible can still find light ahead. Looking back at what's happening, it's clear. This crisis isn't as loud as the one in 2008, but it's quietly creeping into every household, every kitchen, every unpaid bill. And the scariest thing isn't the layoff numbers, but the growing sense of unease in the hearts of Americans themselves. But if history has taught us anything, it's this. America has fallen into darkness many times, and each time it has emerged brighter and stronger, thanks to the resilience of the most ordinary people. So, what do you think? What is truly weakening American workers the most right now? The economy, technology, or the very way the system operates? And more importantly, what do we need to change so that future generations don't have to continue living with the worries we carry today? If you've made it this far and feel this content has helped you understand better, see deeper, or feel less alone, please leave a like so the algorithm knows that real-life stories like this are worth spreading. Don't forget to hit subscribe, because every week we bring you real perspectives on America. Things the press might not tell you, but people experience every day. And if you have anything you'd like to share, leave a comment. Who knows, your story might help someone out there feel understood and stronger. The content in this video is compiled from public sources, economic reports, and industry information. The purpose is to provide analysis, reference information, and social perspectives, not financial, career, or investment advice. The figures, events, and analyses presented are for informational and educational purposes only. They may change over time and do not reflect all individual cases. Viewers should make their own decisions based on their individual circumstances and consult with experts when necessary. All opinions in the video are the observations, analyses, or judgments of the content creator and do not represent any organization or government.